Well, hello, it's Stuart Fensterheim, the couples expert, and we're back for another edition of the Couples Expert podcast. Welcome very, very much to my home, my journey to where I try to help couples throughout the world really establish a close connection and a relationship where you know that you are in that right relationship, where your partner sees you as the best thing since sliced bread. What I mean by that is that the two of you are in this relationship together knowing you with that one person in the world that loves you more than anyone or anything else, and that you are special and they have your back. I am here to help all of you have a more connected, loving, and most importantly, authentic relationship with your spouse or partner. My mission here at the Couples Expert is to really help couples find that authentic, close connection that makes you feel loved, important, and that your partner is the most important person in the world to you, and you are the most important person in the world to them. And they feel like there's no one else as precious to them, and that being with each other just makes the world feel okay. And that the two of you know that your partner is the best thing that happened to them. And not only do they feel it, but they tell you that every single day, every single moment, every single opportunity, that you let your partner know how important they are to you. Now, what we also know is that as a couple, where we have a family, where we nurtured the children, and we've given to each other, there have been sacrifices that come with that. And as a result of that, you look forward, sometimes with some anxiety, that the two of you really build a life. And what your goal is to have your children move on and begin to build lives of their own. And what we call that is becoming an empty nest. When kids move away from their home to start their lives, there's a lot of emotion that comes with that. Today, we're going to be talking about, on this podcast, how to make you becoming an empty nester and the children move away as an exciting time for the entire family. And that the two of you look forward to this, and that you see this as an opportunity to grow closer as a couple and turn the focus from building your children's lives and sending them on, having all the skills that they need, to now being able to say, right now, at this point in our lives, it's about the two of us really nurturing our relationship. So I thank you very much for joining me today on this podcast, where we're going to talk about how to make becoming an empty nester as a baby boomer, and being an empty nester is a special thing, and that you're going to be excited about it. Excited about it because what it's going to mean is that the two of you can really begin to see the fruits of your labor and begin to say, we did it. We built our lives. We gave our children what they needed. And now we can sit back, relax, enjoy our lives, and knowing that we can give to us what we gave to them, which is the love and energy of having a life together where we get to live the rest of our lives focusing on our relationship as the most important one in the world. So I really thank you for joining me, because this topic can really be difficult for some couples. You know, kids leaving home and dealing with some of the normal, commonly referred things, we call it empty nest. And why we call it that, it's sort of like birds that sort of gave the baby chicks all that they needed, all the food they needed, the skills, and now the birds fly away. and that we get to just sit in our nest together, loving each other more than anything. So today, our podcast audience is all of you parents out there, many who are baby boomers, who are watching your grown kids finishing up college degrees, growing up and moving out. We're going to talk later about the empty nest syndrome and what that's all about, and how you and your partner can change and adapt to a new way of living without having children at home. It may feel very weird. It may feel strange. It may even feel incredibly sad with lots of emotions. And that's all very, very normal. We all worry about our children because it's not realistic to expect that you can have a life with your children for 18, 19, 20 years, and just when they leave, have no impact. It's realistic that you're going to have some struggles with it. But what this means is that we need to make a shift in what the relationship is like between you and your partner, and a change in the relationship between you and your grown children. And that with this shift, with you and your partner, focusing more on the two of you and letting your baby chicks fly off from the nest and be out on their own, that the focus is the two of you, and that focus not only builds the two of you having this wonderful, intense, passionate relationship, but your children see that and love what they see and know that they'll be okay, and the two of you will have a life together that's wonderful and loving. I want to start with a quote, though. Every day I spend with you is the new best day of my entire life. Now, that's really an exciting quote. And I ask you to think about this. We can be so inspired by our partners and so in love with them, and that our interactions with them never get boring or old or repetitive, and that it only gets better and better every single day, that we know them so deeply and intimately, and they know us vulnerably, authentically, and we know that they see all of us, and they love every single piece, including the parts that sometimes frustrate and irritate them. They love that part too, because they see your heart and they see your commitment to them, and their commitment to you is real. And what happens as a result of that is we begin to thrive, yes, thrive so passionately on that togetherness. And that togetherness is really the thing that keeps you strong, and that every single day we can wake up, look over at our partners lying in bed next to us, and just smile. And the smile is about knowing that you get to spend the rest of your life with that one person. And there's also an excitement that this is the person that you get to make love to for the rest of your life, and that there's no one else that they'll make love to or that you'll make love to. You know, I wrote an article a while back called Monogamy is Sexy, and this is really the catalyst of that. If you have a relationship with someone where you know that your relationship is so authentic and so real, that doesn't mean that it's going to be fun and easy all the time. You will argue, you will have conflicts, but you know that every single argument you have will also include healing. And that this person is the one person that will always be there for you and you could always count on. And if you have that with someone, there's no one else in the entire world that you want to make love to more than them. and that you can make every single day that new best day. There was a movie a while back called Groundhog Day where it was Bill Murray. And one of the things in that movie is the guy kept living the day over and over and over again. It was driving him crazy. He wanted something different. This is one of those times and one of those things that you want it to be Groundhog Day because you want to always wake up and see that person lying there. I really want to thank you all for joining me. But before I get into the topic, I want to share with you next week. Next week, we're going to be doing a podcast. And what I'm going to talk about, obviously, it's not a surprise. It's going to be something related to the holidays and Christmas and Hanukkah. But I'm going to talk about it in a different way than some others because I have a different perspective than some do because I live an interfaith marriage. I'm Jewish and my wife is Catholic. And we've made our marriage work with both of us and our families. And it hasn't been always easy, but we're going to talk about how to make an interfaith relationship celebrating the holidays together, combining both of the religion traditions and family time for a really meaningful holiday celebration. And I want you to join me because it's going to be a special kind of celebration. And who knows, I might even sing some carols. Well, maybe not, but I might. I think it's interesting to talk about the different traditions and the songs that go into the traditions and how to really make your partner and you both feel important and have your families are alongside of you. So today what we're talking about is adjusting to that period in your life when you're an empty nester. The empty nest syndrome isn't really a clinical diagnosis, but it's more of a phenomenon that's been recognized as something that most people have to deal with at some point in their life if you've had children, and that there are clear difficulties that people have in adjusting to this. And I did a number of podcasts actually on different life stages. And getting married as a young adult, assuming that you stay with one relationship, and the two of you have children together, this is really a transition for both of you. And it works best if both of you are in this together. And what some of the feelings that come up are really feelings of some grief, loneliness, and sometimes incredible anxiety that we experience as parents when our children leave their home, particularly for the first time, and attend school out on their own. I have two daughters, as I've mentioned, and one of them dated a bit in high school, and the other one didn't have a lot of experiences dating. And one of the things that I began to feel rather quickly when my last child was leaving home was worried that someone would take advantage of her. Now, luckily, she was someone that I knew had some experience, but at the same time, whether or not her heart would run her and have her be in a relationship, perhaps, with someone that might truly hurt her. And I worried and I was so anxious. Did I give her enough skills? Was our relationship close enough that if she was struggling with something emotionally, would she come to me? All those things really had me have some very sleepless nights for a while. And I know her mom felt some of the same kinds of things. You know, each parent in the relationship will deal with these issues differently. And sometimes, if your relationship is not where you can talk about these with one another, your worries, your concerns, or try to help each other deal with the anxiety and feel less anxious, that can really have an impact on the relationship. Because truthfully, we have to think about this. You've spent almost 20 years raising this child. You've made them the focus of your entire life. You've sacrificed. You've gone from work to seeing their activities, to sitting down, to dealing with meltdowns and dealing with misbehavior and dealing with them coming of their own, having independent thought. All of these things that we want. We want our children to grow up and start thinking for themselves, but there's some challenges with that as well. And as they progressed in your lives together, your role began to really become less and less. I was a daddy's girl with both my kids till they really were probably around 10. And then I became less important, and their friends became more important. And that really begins to, for some of us, can be really difficult. Because what it does is it begins to having you ask yourself certain questions. One of those questions is, what is my purpose now? I think women have more of a challenge with this. And you begin to say, my role was to be maternal and to really be there for helping my children get through their life without being hurt or traumatized and really being good, healthy, mature people. And all of a sudden, your role becomes less important. And if you put your identity strictly in that, what can happen is you begin to feel a lost purpose. And you look around and you see that you live in this big, huge house with rooms empty, no running feet, no children's laughter, no children fighting. It's weird. But some of the loss for me is the memory of my two daughters going at each other, fighting, and the healing that came with that. Because there always was a time that everyone got back together, really letting each other know that we're healing and repairing this, and it's because we love each other. So what happens when you don't have that, the silence could be very deafening. Sort of like the morning. I wake up some mornings and I go, I got to wake the kids up for school. And then I realize, no, I don't. They're not even here. I walk into their rooms sometimes late at night, and I really get sad when I look at their beds and see that they're empty. Because I remember so many times walking in there, seeing them asleep. Some days it was, oh my God, thank God they're asleep, because they're so precious and quiet. And then when it happens today, I feel some guilt because there were plenty of times back then I said, oh my God, I can't wait till they're gone. And now that they are, I feel guilt of wishing that and sadness because I really love spending time and being with them, and I don't get that. We've all had that exciting time of high school graduation also, in helping kids choose colleges, picking out apartments. That was sort of an interesting one recently that I've gone through. Both of my kids now are in apartments. And packing up and moving them into the dorm. I remember that was really a crazy, crazy time for me, particularly in light of the fact that their mom and I are not together. But, I'm really proud of something. Both of us, her mom and I, were able to move both children into their dorms and really be co-parents and do it in such a healthy way. We helped each other. We supported each other. We supported the kids. My wife was able to be participating, and the children benefited because we were able to rise above some of our own differences to do the thing that we absolutely would have wanted, which is to send the message to the kids that they mattered and that we're all in this together. But as I walked away from dropping my daughter off in her dorm at Arizona State University, it hit me. She really was gone. And in essence, she's all grown up. Now, I don't for a minute think she's all grown up. And my children, who are now 19 and 22, probably would agree with me, although at times they may not. But they don't need me in the same way that they once would, or they once did. And I actually love that idea, because what happens for me, and I think what's happening in our relationship, and I think the goal for all of you is to have this also occur, is your children become adult-like, and you begin to deal with them much more as independent adults that can make decisions for themselves, and that your availability doesn't change, and you're there for them if they need you, but you also trust, and you have to trust, that you've done your job and that they are going to be okay, and that they will turn to you if they need you. And what you want to then do, once you have that awareness and that knowledge that that is how it needs to be and is best for them, you now can then take all that energy and focus it on your relationship with your partner. And instead of grief and loneliness, you can begin to feel that love and joy of why the two of you got married in the first place. And you can start that new chapter of your life as a couple. What I'd suggest to the two of you is that one of the things that may not have occurred is enough planning for this. One of the best things couples can do who know that one day they're going to be empty nesters, because we all are if we have children, what you really need to do is begin to prepare for this ahead of time. So many people come to see me in my office who are struggling with this. And what they begin to say, and I realize one of the biggest issues for them is that they've never talked about this. They've never really stood back and said, how are we doing as a couple? Are we in a place when this happens that it will be seen as a positive thing? Or are you dreading the fact that it's going to be just the two of you? If you are having an experience when you stand back and you think about when your children become 15 or 16, and you recognize they're beginning to move into a new phase, and all you have is one another, if that doesn't feel exciting, you have to take some risks and begin to talk to each other about that. You need to prepare ahead of time. Talk to your partner. Take those risks and begin to talk about the concerns that you have about your future, about the fact that your life together, other than your interactions with the children, have you feeling lonely. That has to be addressed. You can't let that go. You have to take the bull by the horns and say, I have to speak out that we have some concerns and that you and your partner need to work on your relationship together. One of the best ways to do that, by the way, is to attend couples retreats. We offer one at the Couples Expert. There are many around the country where two people over a weekend begin to take a look at the relationship and the cycles and go, what do we have to do so that the two of us are able to really feel a connection where we know that we're with someone that matters to us and that we matter to, and that the two of us are in sync. If you're not, you have to then begin to work toward doing something to change that. It doesn't have to be a couples retreat. That's only one option. It doesn't have to be counseling. There are many, many opportunities, lectures and series and movies that'll bring up the topic and other things that you can do, books you can read together, workbooks you could do, things that two of you can begin to do to make a change on how your relationship is going. This is an incredible, wonderful chance for the two of you to begin to evaluate where you are and, more importantly, where you want to be. The other thing that comes up at this time, a lot of couples begin to have concerns about financial things. And so many people don't understand that money issues are typically symptomatic. If the two of you struggle over how to deal with your finances, for example, it's probably symptomatic of an underlying problem, and the problem being one in which the two of you are unclear, how do I have dialogues about things that really matter to me? So that I highly encourage you to begin to look at some of those financial discussions that we all have. We have to have them at the end of every year. If you two struggle about talking about the taxes and about money and about debt, that likely is a symptom of an underlying problem in the relationship. You want to begin to think about that and how will you deal with this down the road. There are a lot of experts out there. There's one in particular that I've been interacting with who was on my podcast, Emily Bouchard. She's wonderful. She talks with couples all the time about money and how to really have money not become a stress on your relationship. I would highly recommend looking out for things that she does. She does webinars and all sorts of different things. You have to talk to your partner about your concerns. And the change in how your relationship's going to be defined is going to really have a lot to do with whether or not the two of you can have these dialogues authentically and then really begin to work on these together. If you don't know how to do that, how to approach your partner on that, that's when I think you reach out to a mental health professional. I urge you to do that with a couples counselor because they're the experts at this, and begin to say, we have to find a way to do this. The two of you need to be spending a lot of time dreaming about your future early on. It's an opportunity to start talking about, do we want to stay in the home? Do we want to sell our house? Do we want to travel? When will we retire? My wife and I jokingly talk about, I remember one day turning to my children and saying, I'm thinking about retirement. And they looked at me and said, oh, Dad, you're not going to retire, not for many years. And I said, what age do you think that might happen? And my kids said, around 80. I said, 80? Are you crazy? 80 years old, you want me to start thinking about stop working? And I realized some of what that was about is their fear of being able to be independent. And we needed to begin to have dialogues about that and about them becoming financial independent. The two of you need to start thinking about how do you pull back on how much we give the children and how much do we give to ourselves. Because the chances are for most couples, when you begin to, particularly because I think most of us over the last few decades started to have children later and later. And we know that we wanted our careers in place, so we didn't begin to have children till later in life. So by the time we become empty nesters, we're really moving toward retirement. So we have to begin to start talking with one another about that. The shifts that the two of you are going to make when you begin to think about retirement has a lot to do with your free time. start creating your bucket list now. Your bucket list of what are the experiences that the two of you want to have as a couple, and you as an individual. What are some of the things that you would like to do or always dreamed about? Plan to accomplish your bucket list. Whether it's bucket list about your financial life, are you someone that wants to jump out of a plane and learn how to parachute? These are the times that you begin to ask yourself, what do I need from my life and my partner's life and our life together, that if I stand back and it's time for me to pass away, what will I go back and say, I wish I did? And this is the time to start putting that into place and not reflecting later and go, I wish I did. This is the time to reflect back and go, I am so glad I did. I went on that trip. I told the people in my life how important they were to me. And I did this now. Because your role as a parent now goes on the back burner. And you begin to give to yourself and your partner. And your role now is, as a couple, to make your relationship with one another on the forefront. And the love and the energy is all about going into the two of you. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. I know we went a little longer than we typically do, but this is a very important topic. But before we end, I want to introduce someone. But one of the things that I wanted to sort of share is we now have a new counselor here at the Couples Expert, and I want to do a little bit of an introduction to Jackie Leisure, who is a wonderful therapist that graciously agreed to join the practice. And we recently added her, and she is a licensed professional counselor and has experience with adolescents, individuals. She does groups, and she specializes in a couple of areas that is exciting. She has experience with eating disorders, but more importantly, she has a lot of experience with trauma and is a woman that is able to do what's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization. I'm going to be having her on the podcast in the next few weeks, and we'll talk a lot about that. Thank you again for joining me again this week for us to talk about all the topics that really make a difference in your lives, because when I hear from my listeners that this podcast is something that really makes a difference in improving their relationships, I get so thrilled. So I want to thank you again for joining me. And as always, please stay connected. Bye-bye.